Hey there, good evening.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very good.
Good. There he is, live and in person, huh?
Yes.
Right on. The man, the myth, the legend. I love it.
Am I
Hey,
seeing?
listen, I'm really honored that you took the time, and I'm really stoked that you got something out of it. You know, I like to think I put good stuff in there, but I also am really clear that you could, in some sense, split the world into people who are going to get value from anything and people who aren't going to get value from anything. So thank you for being the person who gets value.
Yeah, I knew that, well, first of all, I got a big deadline, and not just a big deadline, but a very soon deadline.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wish I'd done it earlier. When I got to the last couple ones, when you're talking about giving yourself, I realized that it's helping me shift from coming up with the best script that I can and delivering it as best I can to viewing a script as something that's important, but really the structure of it is to unleash myself and to bring everything I got to this.
Yeah.
And I really want to let loose, but you know, for not just blah, but like, I really want to, I feel like when a pitcher throws the ball, he's got every fiber has to go as hard as he possibly can, full body, or a golfer.
Yeah.
And it has to go to the exact spot he's aiming for.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So part of me is like, okay, with 1 week to practice, and you know, I didn't have time to clear off my schedule. So there's all this shit going on. Like I just got off the phone, and you know, and I'll see. Like I have to do the best I can, given the constraints. Partly, I think I say this in like a positive way. This is going to be my worst TEDx talk ever.
Well, there you go. I mean, you know, and part of great art is constraints, right? Working within the constraints. And so it might be your worst TEDx talk ever, and it also might be one of your best, you know, and it might be both at the same time.
What I mean is like, this is the start. This is like, I know I'm going to build and build and build, and next time I'll be more comfortable. And I know that, I mean, the main thing I want to prepare for, there's two things. One is looking out at the audience, maybe the lights are going to be in my face, and just seeing like all the eyes and being like, oh, what was I going to say? And because I'm not used to that situation. And the other will be the time constraint that I could easily talk for 2 hours on the topic that I'm going to talk about.
Well, I mean, and listen, that is the absolute crux of what is so great about TED and TED Talks and what is so hard about them. 20 minutes is way harder than 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Just zero question. 11 minutes, much tougher than 2 hours, you know? Mm-hmm. And what I find is that it is you know, it's interesting because there's so much about the TED format that loops back around into just everything in life. And when I work with these executives on their TED-like talk and they've got 11 or 12 minutes, they have to boil something down that they're used to talking about for a really long time into what really, really, really matters. And for them to get clear about that is awesome. And then all of the stuff that it takes to really do this, it starts to apply everywhere. So, you know, I feel like it's, I mean, and that's when you take it on, like you're taking it on, right? And like people really, when they take it on, lots of people get up and do a TED Talk and it's not that. Mm-hmm. But when you really, really take it on like this, it's super powerful. And the time constraint is one of the greatest forcing factors. And when I ask people what they like about TED Talks, one of the top 3 things is almost always they're short, you know? So interesting.
Yeah, I guess as you're speaking, another one popped up, which is,
sorry, one sec. I can still hear you. I just got to let my dog in. He's
okay. So one of the other things is there's no interaction. I can't be like, do you get that? And I can't wait for them to say yes. because most of what I do are workshops.
Yeah, no, I totally hear that. And, you know, when I spoke at TED a number of years back, it wasn't Chris Anderson who said this, right? So it's not from the top, but one of the folks that was working with TED, they were even, you know, like I was going to have people raise their hand, you know, raise your hand if you've ever seen the Milky Way or whatever. And he was like, well, you know, you got to think about the video audience, because most of the people that are going to see your talk are probably going to be seeing the video versus being in the room with you. So it was pretty interesting because there is that dichotomy of audiences on top of the fact that it's not a workshop and you can't check in with them, you know. So it is pretty interesting. And, you know, an opportunity to really trust yourself in your message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it resonates, you know what, you've done this enough.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, that's why I could say yes. And it was funny when I met the guy, the student who's like the curator guy, I met with him, and I've been working on a kind of TED talk for a while, and I started doing it with him, and he just picked up one part of it and was like, I like that. And that part was not ready I did not consider that part of the talk.
Yeah.
Because it's interactive.
Yeah.
And it's what I do on my podcast, and it's this technique. And now that I'm doing it, it's a big challenge to go from doing it one-on-one to doing it one-to-many, and go from interactive to non-interactive.
Yeah,
but this is the core of my practice.
Yeah.
And this challenge is really big, to make something interactive one-on-one to non-interactive one-to-many. But it's also it's possibly, and now I'm seeing it as I can make it the greatest platform. I don't mean the TED platform, but I mean like this could really take it to another level. Give me,
And you know, for what it's worth, I mean, I don't know the specifics, but for what it's worth, one of the things that I've gotten really clear about over the years is that you are doing this one-to-many, not interactive. The more you can make it still feel like it's one-on-one and interactive, the better it's going to land.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay.
So a minor thing that I do all the time now is I never ever say talk to you. Like it was nice to talk to you. I say it was nice to talk with you. You know, and little things like that where I try never to say something from the stage that is different than I would say in a one-on-one conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because every little bit makes a difference.
Because every little bit, every single way you can pull that 1,000-person audience into feeling like it's a one-on-one conversation with you is just golden. That's all they really want, you know? There's 1,000 of them, but it can feel for each one like it's one-on-one.
Yeah. So Saturday is the dress rehearsal, and the event is the following Saturday.
Okay.
And what I want to do is, the script has evolved a bunch, but it's not done yet, but it's like the delta between iterations is getting smaller and smaller. Okay. And I think I'm getting pretty close.
Do you want to just run it for me and I'll take some notes? And
yeah, be up for it. And what I'd like to do is get it so that if by Saturday I can get it basically set, then I'd like the next week to be just so I don't have to think about the words.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
question, are you planning on doing it word for word, or are you going to do it from an outline, or how are you working it?
It's, you know, a lot of it I've done so many times that I'm actually taking the words that I already say. And I do want to do it.
Perfect. The one thing I want to say is that I would caution you, especially at this late date, to try to do it word for word. Like, don't have a written out script. If it's stuff you've already done so much that it comes out the same, that's different. But when people try to memorize something word for word the whole way, they run into what I call the alphabet song problem, which is
starting at I.
Song from, you know, M, right? It's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? You got to go all the way back to the beginning. Whereas if you're doing it from an outline, or if you're doing it as something that pieces that you've done so many times before, that's not all stuck together like one thing, and it works much better, I think. I think
ultimately, at first I was writing a script, and then I realized every part of the script I've done in other contexts.
Yeah.
So really, I just have to get the order right and go into like this. I can't help but use like comedian terminology. Do this bit, then this bit, then this bit, then this bit.
I mean, that works. And just understand the one thing, like the second iteration of that is what was the logic behind each of the transitions? Mm-hmm. And then you're set, you know, just to understand how it flows and do it enough that it just flows naturally. I think that's absolutely, you know, that's the beauty of having worked on this stuff so long in the contexts you've worked on it in, is that you've got these bits. Same thing with me. I mean, like my talks on airplanes are oftentimes just one bit after another, you know, because people
so I'm going to have, the transitions are going to be off here just because I've been moving stuff around.
That's fine.
All right. So, ready to go?
Ready to go. And I'm going to take some notes. So I might be looking at the screen, doing some stuff. If that throws you off, tell me, but it helps me to just get notes.
Okay. I bet that everyone here wants a cleaner environment, and nobody is acting near the potential. And I bet I can get you to act less, or at least lower your motivation. How about this? You're trashing the planet by using plastic. You should stop. If you cared about future generations, you would pollute less. Did anyone feel motivated by those two statements? Because they're among the more popular messages. How did it happen that we live in a world today where everybody wants clean air, land, and water, but few individuals and no culture live sustainably? More importantly, what do we do about it? Because we are doing it. Carbon dioxide is not causing global warming. Plastic is not causing our rivers to become choked. Carbon dioxide is a molecule, it just bounces around. Plastic is inert. They have no volition. We do. Our behavior causes these results. And if we want to change things, we have to change our behavior. That's leadership. If the causes are inside us, then we have to work on ourselves. I have a PhD in physics, so I think I know the science decently, and I think I know the engineering okay. But the more people understand the physical problems, the more that they say, we can solve this. The question is, will we? So why aren't we? When someone wants to do something but doesn't, oftentimes something is discouraging or inhibiting them. And I'm going to teach you how to lead yourself and others. I'll apply it to the environment, to environmental action, but it applies everywhere you want to lead someone without relying on authority, a boss, a spouse, a client. And I've done it with hundreds of people, most of it recorded online, so you can hear it with them. I believe that this is the starting point of changing the cause of our environmental problems, our behavior, which is guided by our beliefs. We change our beliefs through experience. Facts, figures, doom and gloom, they rarely change people's beliefs. A lot of people think that I motivate them, but I don't. They're already motivated, but they're inhibited. The opposite of judgment, which is often the main inhibition, is support. I support people. Their inhibitions fall, their passions emerge, and they discover themselves to act on. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wrote The Little Prince, said, if you want to build a ship, don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. It illustrates our problem in acting environmentally today. It's all management, no leadership. All extrinsic, no intrinsic. It's all assuming your motivation and not finding it out and acting on it. All the benefits are abstract and academic, but the actions you have to do tangibly take your time and attention. Even evoking emotions like talking about future generations or cuddly animals or doomsday futures, they don't work, and they often backfire, making us feel helpless and disengaged. I've talked to hundreds of people about what the environment means to them, and no two have answered the same. Everyone starts the same. We all want clean air, land, and water, but underneath, everyone's endless immensity of the sea is unique and personal. We all care, but we care in our own way. Have you ever tried to lead someone else to pollute less and see it backfire? My first attempt to lead environmentally came to speaking to an earth science department at Columbia University, filled with people dedicating their lives to studying our environment, many to help protect it. It did not work. Despite how well I felt I organized my presentation, I failed to engage people who cared. I spoke to individuals after the talk. They had their plans based on their personal reasons, and mine didn't influence them. When someone hears a message that's not tuned for them, however in tune it is for you, that misunderstanding leads them to disengage. When all of our motivations are unique, your intrinsic is extrinsic to them. And showing that you care in a different way that they do tells them that you're going to judge them by criteria that are not theirs. And then in that case, the more that you show that you care, the more that they'll anticipate you're going to judge them by your values that aren't theirs. And the less you show you care, the less they feel motivated. So we have a world filled with people who want to act, but feel discouraged, in part by those who want to motivate them. And for that matter, we have a world full of people trying to motivate, some of them dialing up the intensity, figuring I got to do more, some of them dialing it down, figuring this is too much. All of it each way ineffective. And yes, there are some people changing, but we all know the directions of things you can measure: carbon dioxide, mercury, plastic, methane, extinctions. Every measure, as the predictions of the dangers become more clear and more pressing. And if you think businesses and government that they should change first, the same applies to executives and politicians and decision makers who would act. Decision makers would rather not try than open themselves up for judgment that they can't pass in favor of blending in. But I teach leadership, and I've worked with, bad transition here. Let me read this for a second. Well, I'll just go with the trend. But I teach leadership and have worked with hundreds of people from around the world, from world-renowned leaders to this of a C-suite leader of a $30 billion company, to people on the street, old and young, and I've focused on what leads people to like changing, not have to, not feel compelled to or coerced to, but like it. I found what leads people from, if I act but others don't, then what I do doesn't matter, to acting and saying, I wish I'd done this earlier. I want to do more. I want to share this joy, not drudgery, with others. And I'm going to share with you what works, which you'll hear working on my podcast, and you're going to experience here now. I believe that this technique holds the key to cultural change, from extrinsic to intrinsic, from abstract to visceral, from telling people what to do to evoking their unique personal immensity of the sea. And I'm going to do it with you. I'm over 90% one-on-one and interact. I'm over 90% successful one-on-one and in interactive groups. I can't guarantee it will work with everyone, but for some it will. And with practice, you can do it with yourself and with others. It takes practice to learn, but you can do it. And when you do, you can lead others. So it's a 4-step process. Step 1 is I ask you, what does the environment mean to you? Many, I'm surprised to find, have never been asked or take for granted that it's nearly the same for everyone. And so I'm going to pause here for a second, and you don't have to say it loudly, but say what the environment means to you. I'll give you a second. Many people feel odd being asked a question because their feelings seem so universal, but it's my favorite part of my podcast because everyone's answer is unique. Yours is unique to you. Some people say the environment is about camping with their families growing up, others with their dog in the park, others it's a dystopic future or dolphins or an aesthetic joy or some nebulous fear. Sometimes the future, sometimes the past, sometimes optimistic, sometimes pessimistic. However, whatever your answer is, it will be a mix of your answer plus various distractions. What do I mean by distractions? One is that people protect themselves because sharing what you care about makes you vulnerable to judgment. Almost all of you are thinking of something that points to what you care about, but needs some dusting off. Another is that often people think they want to give an answer of what they think the other person wants to hear. We're social, we want acceptance. But no matter what I care about, what you care about is unique to you. Another is to focus on strategies to act. A lot of people think, well, I should do this, I should do that. Strategies are important, but they arise from what we value. Strategies point to our values and meaning, what we care about. Another distraction is analysis. Many people talk about scientific results, legislation. Those things are important too, but they aren't the emotions, the images, the memories, and so on of what the environment means to you. So amid all these protections, most of us aren't aware of them. It helps to have someone else ask you to confirm and clarify your answer. And I hope that as I talked about these distractions, that you clarified your feeling. So I recommend when I finish talking, after this talk, talking to the person next to you about these things. But for now, I ask you to say again out loud what the environment means to you, hopefully a bit adjusted after you've dusted off some of the protections. So I'm going to pause again, and you can mumble if you want so no one hears it. Now that you've said it, examine what you said. In the podcast, I can confirm and clarify, but hopefully you'll keep doing that. That was step 1. What does the environment mean to you? Step 2, I invite you, at your option, to think of something that you can do to act on that value. Nearly everyone jumps at this point to something that I did not ask. They answer what they think is most important, or what others think that they should do, or what I want them to do, or what they think is the biggest. But it's for you to think of something to act on your values, not anyone else's, not mine, not Greenpeace, not the ones that will make the biggest difference, but what matters to you. So I'm going to pause again and maybe mumble something that you think that you could do to act on that value. Now, I hope you thought of something. Keep it in mind. You could, even having said it out loud. Now you've heard, sorry about the transition. Experience has told me that the 4 conditions help people because a lot of people have a challenge coming up with something to do. The first is that you don't have to fix all the world's problems by yourself overnight. People keep trying to pick something really big or extreme, like never flying again or never eating meat again, or something that they read about or that everyone else is doing. But what works is what you care about, because if you like it, you'll keep doing it. If the size of what you do was important, you'd believe that to play Carnegie Hall, starting by playing scales wouldn't matter. But playing scales is exactly what works. This is about building skills on something that matches. And some people say little things don't add up, or some people say little things add up if everyone else does them. I won't argue with that, but I see it differently. Little things bring you to big things. After you've done little things, big things don't seem so big anymore. When everyone does big things and keep moving to bigger, that's what makes a difference. The next thing to help you think of something to do is that it can't be telling someone else what to do. We already have enough people telling others what to do, which frankly I think gets populist selected globally. More to the point, we learn through experience, not their experience, but our experience. So I'm not suggesting to stop trying to motivate your kids or your parents or corporate decision makers, politicians and so forth, but you'll lead them a lot more effectively after you personally act yourself. The next constraint on what to do is the activity has to be something you aren't already doing. It has to be new to you. People love sharing what they're doing. I ask them and they tell me, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I love hearing what they do, but we're talking about what you care about. If you haven't thought of something that you want to do more, you haven't gotten that you'll like this. So when you see that you really want to do something, then you'll want to do something new. Now, most people on finding something new, sorry, I missed one.
Okay.
The activity has to create physically measurable results. I'm a fan of education and awareness, but the environment reacts to our behavior. And so this has to give a measurable result, environmentally speaking. So most people on finding something new, measurable for themselves, and they're not worried about the size of what they do, they realize that they found something that they thought about long ago and had meant to do, but they covered it up with their defenses. That's one of the reasons why this is one of the first places where people thank me, and they'll thank you when you do it with them. So hopefully you come up with something now that at your option, something to do to act on that value. And I'm going to pause again for you. You probably adjusted it now, and you probably found that it's something you meant to do for some time. So I'll pause and just say it quietly what you would do. Now I recommend developing with your neighbor after my talk ends. Just turn to them and say, this is what I was going to do, and have them work it out a little bit more. If you're watching this on video, rewind and listen to what I said. And sorry about the bad transition here. Rewind and go through the process step by step. Or listen to the guests on the podcast. Few of them know their activity from the start. Most of them have to iterate, but then they get really happy when they get to it. So the first step is what do you value? What about the environment do you value? What does the environment mean to you? The next was to, at your option, think of something new to act on that value. Those are the real leadership parts. The next 2 steps are more management to make things happen. So the next step, step 3, is to make your goal a SMART goal, where SMART stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. But mainly specific and time-bound. This isn't something you have to do forever or for some indeterminate period of time. So some guests pick a week-long activity. Some people take a year. It's whatever's right for you until you feel like you'll get a feel for it. And finally, the 4th step is accountability. On the podcast, I invite the guests to share their experience for a second episode. For you, when I finish this talk, I recommend sharing your email with your neighbor, the person next to you, and share your experiences with each other. And as an aside, these exercises nearly always build community. So the steps again from the top, really quickly, are first, What does the environment mean to you? Next, pick an activity to act on that. Next, make it a SMART goal. And next, make it accountable. The result, if it worked, is that you've dusted off a passion that's been there for a while and connected it to a task. And connecting to a passion to a task imbues it with meaning, often inspires people. You still have to implement it. Besides community, most people develop enthusiasm and expectation of success. They replace what I do doesn't matter with I wish I'd done this earlier. I wonder what else I can do. And what used to look like challenges, like other people, they bring in as part of the process and help them succeed. When you do this with others, you will find amid everyone's unique values, a few common threads that transcend culture, age, and all of our differences. Everybody wants clean air, land, and water. You'll connect people with you'll connect with people in your life as I have with the globally renowned people that I have. This exercise develops the skills of empathy, compassion, understanding, making people feel understood, listening, and other aspects of leadership. Do it enough and you're going to get promoted even if you don't try. Here's a couple examples. I spoke to a very successful, very public entrepreneurial podcaster who's a multimillionaire. He lives by the beach. When you think of people who would act environmentally, few people would put him at the top of the list. And when I asked him about if the environment meant much to him, he said, not really. After this short dialogue I had with him, with enthusiasm, he thought up to bring a bag with him to the beach and pick up every piece of trash he could find once a month for a year. Moreover, he thanked me for the opportunity to pick up trash. He could pay people to do it for him if he just wanted it cleaner. He wanted to do it for himself. And when I interviewed him 6 months in, he said that when his family visited, he took them with him. His neighbors started following. He thanked me for the task. And at the end of the year, he upped his commitment and we become friends over it. I talked to a woman who's in the C-suite of a $30 billion company. Again, someone with no need to change her life. After a short conversation going through the 4 steps that I described, she volunteered to buy no clothing for 2019. 6 weeks in, did she tell me it was too much? On the contrary, she told me it led her to get rid of clothes she already had, and she enjoyed the process of decreasing the amount of clothing she had. She's re-examining relationships with people who promote shopping and wasting. That is to say, she's augmenting her activity without me. She's creating meaningful lifestyle change. We become friends over too. None of the people I worked with is a tree hugger. All of them thanked me. Each chose based on experience led by this technique. Several inspired me back. And all the conversations are recorded online. That short conversation may hold the key to the next stage of environmental action, effective leadership. As it turns out, this technique has worked for millennia, but we've been looking in the wrong places for it. Other examples I've worked with: an Olympic gold medalist, a Marine 4-star general, many #1 best-selling authors, several TED speakers with tens of millions of views, NYU students and friends, meaning just regular people too. You'll hear our colonel, a department head at West Point, another non-bastion of tree huggers, created his family's best Christmas ever by foregoing gifts, bringing them closer. You can replicate these results with yourselves and with others. As I said, this technique may be the next stage of environmental action, leadership, which means joy, discovery, growth, meaning, value, purpose, passion. You can make it happen. Practice your passion. Practice the technique with your communities. Listen to the podcast to hear the technique to improve and expand on it. Take the next step. Lead yourself through action based on your passion. Lead your neighbor to find and act on his or her passion. Lead all of us to what we all love, because 7 billion people want a cleaner and pure environment. Their endless immensity of the sea isn't yours, but it motivates them just as much. Honor it. Give them a way to act on it. This is the cultural change we're looking for, from passive to active, from extrinsic to intrinsic, from abstract, analytical and academic, to visceral, concrete, and rewarding, from coercive management to inspirational leadership. Inspire us.
Cool.
So I was kind of doing a few things on the fly.
Okay. So how did you feel? You go first, and then I'll give you some thoughts.
So I think it's come along pretty well. Oh, fuck, it's hard to say. the big question to me is if people listening, everyone that I've told it to so far, I've done the process with.
Yeah.
And I don't know if when I'm on the stage and saying this to people who have not gone through the process, the people who have done it, they're like, yeah, that really got me. But I don't know if it works with people who haven't done it. You're the first person. Like when I paused, are people just being like, or they're like, oh, that's interesting. That's good. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you know, like part of me, I was thinking about the same thing because part of me is listening to this in a different mode, right? Like I'm listening to this for the speech versus experiencing it. Right. And it is easy in the listening mode to just go la 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 la, right? Like, and I think that the examples that you gave, I feel like you could maybe give more actual examples to help people get into what the answers look like from other people. And, you know, of course that's not their answers, but you know, this isn't your answer, but what I've heard is things like camping, dogs in the park, dolphins, you know, like that was good. Then I think something you can do to act on that value, right? Sometimes people do this, do that,
Okay, so examples.
You know, which I don't want to necessarily, give them multiple choice, but at the same time, I feel like that might be useful when you do it as a process. How does it play out in the one-on-one back and forth?
Oh, that's a very dynamic experience.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's a few blocks that happen every time. It's like almost every time.
I was going to ask, is there
each one
generalizable?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to cover that. Like usually when I say, what does the environment mean to you? There's a few answers. As I said, and this is what I want to get, like in my rehearsal and practice, I want to get off of following the script too closely and just say, like, here's a couple. A lot of people, they talk about, like, what does the environment mean to you? And they're like, we got to do this, we got to do that. I'm like, okay, that's what we got to do. But what's driving that?
Yeah.
Or they'll say, you know, it doesn't really matter because the corporations are, okay, maybe the corporations are doing their thing, but what does it mean to you? And it's hard for them to get that out because all these protections.
Yeah.
And I know that if I just sit there and just keep confirming and clarifying and sticking with that, eventually they'll say, oh man, you know, it's this thing. And then they're so glad to share.
Yeah.
And they really enjoy it. And same with when I ask them what they can do. First, they're like, well, I guess I could stop eating meat, but I like meat. I'm like, I didn't say to do something you didn't want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And I say, if you, like, this is about you doing something based on what you care about. It's not what I want. It's not what other people want. And then they're like, I don't know, I already do all these things. And I'm like, well, if something's motivating you, is there anything else? And eventually they're like, you know when I go shopping with my kid's like, don't get a bag. And I'm like, but I need the bag. And I'm like, maybe for a week, I'll do what it takes to bring the bag with me. And and then it turns out it's with my kid instead of against my kid.
Yeah.
And once they get it, they're like, oh, it's like liberating. Yeah. Because they feel like this was something that they couldn't do for all this time because they were afraid of being judged and so forth. And now they realize, I'm really just, I just want to hear after you've done something that matters to you, what it's like. And they're like, I really want to try that. I've been meaning to. Yeah. Thanks. I'm like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be able to say it, as I said to you, but with all the likes and the ums.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I'm recording this and I'll send you a link to the recording. I almost want you to go back and listen to how you said these things to me, not in talk.
Yeah.
And see if there's not some way to bring a little more of that to this, and I'm trying to think, I'm trying to come up with some super smart, clever way to unveil this, but I think that's probably the best I've got is go listen to how you just explained it to me and, you know, understand that you can't do the process with the whole audience, but you could talk to them like you just talked to me about the process. And it would, you know, that, because that felt really good to me to hear that stuff. And it got me a lot more clear about things, you know.
Yeah, I feel like that's what the script is like. If I just followed the script perfectly, I think that would be a conservative way of doing it. But I think it would be, I really want to get the script down so that I can let go of it. Because I'm kind of worried about, like, when I write it, I want to be comprehensive and cover every little point. But I think when I actually talk, I think it's more important to get the feeling than all the details.
I mean, I totally, of course.
I can use my poetic license, which I put into the...
Right on.
You saw what I did? Like,
no, you know, I didn't know where to look for your posts. I went and tried to find them, but where? Oh, you mean in my course?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I posted them underneath.
Yeah. I'll go look at that stuff. No, that's cool. I'll go look at.
Copy the text of your.
I went immediately to social media. I was like.
I copied the text of the license, of the poetic license, and I put it in with my name underneath. So now other people can copy it from me. Like, I did the hard work.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's sweet of you. Thank you. That's cool.
So I have my poetic license, which even if I lose.
Yeah, like it's in the cloud. Yeah, through the magic of magic.
Yeah.
So, well, you know, so, I mean, of course I would agree with you on that, like knowing where I'm coming from. And you know, there's a couple things of, you know, drill sergeant for your greatness, right? Like, I love your message. I think it's fabulous. I don't think that's the issue. Drill sergeant for your greatness would say that it felt a little bit like you were speeding through this. And I wonder do you know what time length you have? Like, are you worried about time at this point already? Or? Well,
I know that I've been cutting a while ago. This is like a third the length that it was before. And even as we were doing it, I was cutting stuff. And I haven't really gotten a sense of, I want to get it to like 12 minutes, 15 minutes, and then relax a bit.
Yeah, I think that's really good because, you know, if you go, like, there are times when you want to go fast. Like, if you're trying to sell something and you want people to buy the course, then you go too fast so they can't keep up and they just have to buy the course, right? That's not what we're doing here. If you go too fast here, it will decrease your credibility. It will decrease your status. So I think that it would be really good for you to boil this down so that it felt like you had plenty of room in here, because couple things, and I don't not say stuff anymore. Sometimes I don't say it very well. So I'm just going to say up front, please try and hear what I'm trying to say, not necessarily what comes out. But I feel right now like it's going really fast. I feel a little bit intimidated by you. I love that you talk about not judging, but I'm still afraid you're going to judge me. And I don't know if I got it all here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now, sorry, go ahead.
I'm thinking of cutting even more. I mean, definitely cutting more.
Let me run through and tell you some of the key things that I resonated with out of this stuff, because I do feel like there is a, you know, in the term of, I mean, you're a PhD, in the elegance, right? The term elegant in science. I feel like there's a tremendously elegant message here, and there's still some stuff that just needs to be kind of wiped off and smoothed away to get to that. And so, so I'm going to kind of group these together, and for whatever it's worth, I mean, this is what I'm seeing. So I'm going to group these together in kind of the messages that I see and talk about them a little bit. Like, first off, like, I get the big thing I take away from that is that people care, and we're not necessarily being motivated the right way. Like we care and like we're still doing stuff. And it's not the plastic that's the problem. It's us. Like we have volition, and we all feel really discouraged, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the support versus judgment, the discovering yourself, the teaching them to act, the abstract versus actions. Hundreds of people, no two of them does it mean the same thing to. And again, that just furthers this this pullback that we feel of like discouragement and being judged, right? Mm-hmm. And then you teach leadership, you teach world-renowned people, you get them on your pet podcast. 90% of them successfully make a change. And here are the 4 steps that have that happen. Mm-hmm. And then it's important to have community around this, like tell other people, talk to your friends, tell your spouse, tell your kids, whoever you see on a regular basis. This is not just for tree huggers. This is for everybody. And this could potentially take us to the next stage of actually saving our planet, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how useful that was to you, but that's kind of what that's what I got out of everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that going up to 50,000 feet for a minute and just saying, okay, what is my one idea worth spreading here? What's the one singular takeaway that I have? And then getting everything else to either line up behind that like a shaft behind a spear point, or just letting it wash away if it's not important to that, And do you have if you had to say what is the one idea we're spreading in this, do you have a clear answer for that for sure for yourself? Or
yeah, well, I would say this is a technique that works. And then I have to say the technique. So I don't know if that counts.
Yeah.
But there's a technique that motivates, there's a technique that leads people to want to change their environmental behavior.
Okay, good. And I mean, and I think that part of that point is maybe something like, although it seems, although it seems really difficult to get people to change their behavior, and although many people feel super discouraged, there is a technique that has a very high success rate when it comes to getting people to change.
How about yeah, we all want to change, but judgment inhibits it. Support the opposite of inhibits, promotes it.
Yeah.
And there's a way to do it.
Way better. That's good.
We all want to change.
Yep.
Judgment inhibits it. Support promotes it. And there's a technique that you can learn to do it, to do that support.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's a technique you can learn that will support you and the people around you to actually do this happily.
Yeah.
Versus
enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I think that's a lot closer than our first stab at that. That's already, much closer. And I think that when you say it that succinctly, I think it starts to perk people's ears up, right? Like, we all want to change, but the way that we're doing it actually inhibits us, because judgment is an inhibitor, whereas support is freeing, or what, yeah, forget, liberating, whatever. You came up with a good word. I can't remember it. You know, and because I think that that's already got people who are like, oh my gosh, you mean I could be hopeful for a second here? Like there's, you know, I don't have to like feel so downtrodden like I always do when I freaking read about the boreal forest turning into toilet paper. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like the first sentence of the talk.
I mean, it might be, right? It certainly would be something to play with as a, now here's the other thing, before we jump into that, the other thing that and look, I'm just pulling no punches because we don't have a lot of time, and I know it's what you'd want. Just because I love you. In general, in your persona out there, and it might just be me, I'm perfectly willing to accept that, like I might be Freudian projecting here something or something like that, but you come across as pretty intimidating in my experience.
You're not the first to say it.
Yeah, okay. So maybe it's not just me. And yet I don't think that that's who you actually are. It's not like you're out to cow people, obviously. So the other thing that I'm wondering in here is how can we maybe right up front humanize you and have people get who you are and where you're coming from, so that doesn't come across like intimidation. It comes across like just a natural outgrowth of this person who's already fully fleshed out as human. Does that make sense?
There's one part that I cut where I said, did I talk about the earth science thing?
I mean, yes, that you were earth science at Columbia and it didn't work. Yeah.
And did I say about, then after that, I tried to work with, here's another part that I cut on this one. So I spoke to some colleagues and some friends and people at a series of talks at NYU. It didn't work either. It was an emotional minefield. People pushed back like crazy. They were like, stop telling us what to do.
Yeah.
But then I spoke to a student group a student sustainability group sponsored by a sustainability department at NYU. Same thing, emotional minefield. I had everything I could, and I totally wanted to give up. And then it happened that I was with a former student, and we were having coffee, and I mentioned how I have this, I pick up a piece of trash per day. And he said, oh, I'll give it a shot. I'm going to pick up 10 pieces of trash a day for a month. I thought, okay, give it a shot. At the end of the month, he did it. Not only that, but on his own, see, he said two things. One, he felt like, at the beginning, he felt weird picking up trash, and people might see him. At the end, he felt weird passing it by without picking it up.
Yeah.
And then on his own, he said, now that I like this, what can I do? And he found out that meat was a big thing he could change. So he had this meat, and despite being a bodybuilder. So it was a kind of work. He had to figure out all the macros and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's weird. I tried and I failed. I tried and I failed. I tried and I failed. I didn't try and I succeeded.
Yeah.
What happened? And then I had to figure out what worked.
Yeah.
Because something worked, I had to figure out what. And that into, finding out what people care about and getting people to act on it. And so and I also said, after the third time, I said, 3 times, 3 strikes, that's not them, that's me.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's good.
And I had to do something different. And I felt like giving up.
Yeah.
And that's when I had the coffee with a friend.
Now, let me just ask you a little bit further back than that. What was your initial, did you see the superhero origin story thing?
Which one? They're all superhero origins now.
There was that really short thing that I asked you to watch before the course. Did you remember it? Like Peter Parker got bitten by a radioactive spider, turned into Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the part that I missed in that's in the text is the reason Peter Parker didn't go join the circus is because and make a lot of money and rather fights crime is because when he early on, he let the villain go by. he let the villain go because it wasn't his problem, right? And then that villain killed his Uncle Ben. And now, like freaking Spider-Man's serious about crime, he's not going to go join the circus, you know? So I wonder what your moment like that was, because you're clearly inspired to do what you do. And you know, what you're saying here is absolutely paramount to you.
So the biggest change came when I looked at my garbage, saw how much of my garbage came from food packaging, and I felt helpless. And I felt like powerless. And then I said, let me see if I can go for a week without packaged food. And after I did, it was really hard. But then I learned how to cook. And now I avoid packaged food, not because it's about joy. And I thought it was going to be hard. I thought it was going to be impossible. And all the planning in the world didn't help. You know what helped? Going to the store when I'm hungry and being like, that's in a box, that's in a can, that's in a bag, rubber band, sticker, broccoli. That's what I got.
Yep.
And actually, what I'm sharing in my heart is delicious.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like hardship. When you're in one world, one system, it looks like deprivation and sacrifice.
Yeah.
But when you get into that system, and it's about joy, it's about discovery, it's about delicious.
Yeah. See, now this is the talk, Josh. I think this is the talk, because all this stuff that you've said before is the stuff you've said before to get to the place where you can say this about it, I think. Doesn't mean you can't say any of that, but I love the idea of you starting out with that story of, you know, I was, you know, like I thought of myself as a pretty aware person. And then one day I looked at my trash and I was just like, holy smoke, you know, like this amount of garbage from packaged freaking food? Really? I'm not going to eat packaged food for a week. And I thought it was going to be really hard and just exactly what you just told me, right? Mm-hmm. And then you could say, and then boy, I got excited and decided everybody else should be doing this. And I started, you know, like it was my job, and I went and talked to these groups, and they kept this group, and boy, did I set off some emotional mines. And then the next one, same thing. And by the third time I was like, okay, I'd really like to blame them, but three, that's gotta be me, right? Mm-hmm. Like that story you just told me, that whole thing is an opening. And then I think at the end of it, a really great close might be something like what you just said, you know, what I'm sharing in my heart is joy, you know, and in this system, it may look like deprivation, but once you get over into this system, it's joy. Like this is not as hard as we're making it. This isn't as scary and intimidating, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, I like all that personal stuff from you.
So okay. So it's you know, one day I was sitting in my kitchen, I looked down at my garbage, and I said, that's a lot of garbage. And for the first time I realized, I'm producing a lot of garbage. I got to stop that. And I felt really helpless. I mean, I felt like ashamed and helpless. And the best way I knew to avoid the feeling ashamed and helpless was to analyze and plan, but not do. Yeah, good. And it got occupied my mind, but I was still producing a lot of garbage. And then you know, one day I was like, just do it. I'm not going to die if I can just have rice for a week. And I did it 2.5 weeks. And
no packaged food.
At the end of it, I kept it up. And, you know, the hard part isn't what food to get. The hard part is not knowing how to cook. But once I know how to cook, it became more delicious than ever. My food it's more delicious, costs less, more convenient, more people come over. And I thought, I got to share this. This isn't about deprivation and sacrifice. It looked like it. And the first change was hard, but once you get over the other side, it was great. I wanted to share that joy and that deliciousness. I thought, I know what to do. I'm going to share this with people. And so I worked out, like, here's how to do it. And I went and spoke to this Earth Institute at Columbia University. Oh my God, it failed. They did not want to hear what I had to say. And these are people who are dedicated lives to helping the Earth. I'm a professor at NYU, so I set up a series of talks at NYU with friends and colleagues and former students. it was like an emotional minefield. Of which I stepped on every single one. People push back hard. Stop telling us what to do. Don't lecture us. We already know. I organized a group of students in sustainability with the sustainability department at NYU. I spoke to them, more minefield. They're like, we already know. Stop telling us what to do. All right, that's 3 strikes. I'd like to say that was them, but 3 strikes is me. It was not working. And I felt like giving up. No matter what I wanted to share, it was like I wanted it so much that it wasn't working. And one day, after feeling like giving up, I was having a coffee with a friend, and I said, I just mentioned how one of the things I do that brings me joy is I pick up a piece of trash every day, at least one. Not even cleaning up the world, it's just moving from one place to another. I guess it's keeping it out of the oceans. And he just said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to pick up 10 pieces of trash a day for a month. Didn't expect it, didn't ask him for it. So a month later, I asked him how it went. And he said a couple things. One, first of all, he did it. Second of all, he said, first I felt weird picking up trash. People might see me. At the end, I felt weird passing it by without picking it up. He also, on his own, thought, well, now that I'm doing this, what else can I do? Because he liked it. He found out meat was a big deal. So he decided to have his meat intake. And he's a bodybuilder, or he lifts weights. So he had to figure out all the macros and stuff. So it was not like a challenge, a trivial thing for him to do. And I really liked it. I thought, this is really weird. I tried and I failed. I tried and I failed. I tried and I failed. I didn't try and I succeeded. Something worked and I didn't know what. So I thought, I got to figure out what's working here. And I've distilled that into a 4-step process. At the heart of it is that judgment, people want to act, but they don't because they fear they're going to be judged. They protect themselves. And the opposite of that, the antidote to that, is to support people. And I'm not the Dalai Lama here. I do the best I can. I got a long way to go. But I got a process that works. If you listen to the podcast, it's all recorded. You can hear it in action. I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to teach you how to do it. It works. And by the way, it's not something I made up. It's just no one has applied it to leadership. No one has applied it to the environment. But it works. And here's the 4-step process. So step 1 is I ask the person, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to do it with you right here, right now. You're going to feel it. If you get into this with me, you're going to feel it. I'm 90% one-on-one doing this when it's interactive, and it's one to many. So you got to work with me here. But if you practice it, you'll be able to do this. And when you do it with others, when you do it with yourself, you're going to like it. When you do it with others, they're going to thank you for it. And if you do it enough, you're just going to get promoted and you're going to get raises at work just because this technique is not specific to leadership, but that's where to the environment, but it works there. Step 1, what do you care about? What does the environment mean to you? Now, most people, when they hear this, a lot of people have never been asked. And they think, well, they think what they're supposed to, they answer what they're supposed to answer. Or they give some cocktail party answer, which is like, this is what they read or something like that. And we're social creatures. We want to give you what you want to hear. But I'm asking you what you think about when you think about the environment. What do you think about? It's unique to you. Some people it's dolphins. Some people it's walking the dog in the park. Some people it's this dystopic future they saw in some horror movie or something like that. Whatever it is, that's you. I'm going to pause for a second and just whatever you thought of, just say it quietly. Say it as loud as you want, but say it out loud. I'm going to pause for a second.
Camping.
All right, hopefully something came out. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple things. Now, there's a whole bunch of things that keep people from saying what they really mean at this stage. I'm going to say a couple things, and while I say it, see if any of them apply to you and try to refine it. When I work with people on the podcast and in person, you'll hear that I go back and forth and I could confirm and clarify. But one, people feel that they might be judged. If I know what you care about, I can laugh at you, I can judge you. Superman's invulnerable. If you know about Lois Lane, there he's vulnerable. People don't share what they care about. So a lot of times what you think of as what you care about covered with a layer of dust. You got to sweep that off. A lot of times people, they think, what's the most important thing? Or what do I read about in the paper? Well, those things might matter to you, they might not. And people often think, what does Josh want me to say? It's really what you care about. It's not for me. It's just, there's something you care about. And a lot of people think about strategy. What should I do? I should do this, I should do that. Well, strategies, if you want to do something something matters to you. So I'm going to pause again, and maybe if you've refined what you thought of at first, say it again with a bit of refinement. And hopefully this will work a bit. So I'm going to pause for a second. And if there was a bit of change, even if there wasn't, after I finish talking, take a chance to turn to your neighbor and listen to theirs and share yours with theirs, because I bet in the talking, you'll hear on the podcast, that's what happens. People, it comes out. All right, step one, that was what does the environment mean to you? Step two is I invite you at your option to come up with something to act on that value. Now, almost everybody answers right away with something I did not ask, which is what's the most important thing I could do? What's the most effective thing that I could do? That's not what I asked. It's something to act on what you care about. This is not about everybody else. This is about you acting on what you care about. If you felt like the magnitude of what I did was the most important thing, I think you'd have to accept that playing scales would never get you to Carnegie Hall. But that's exactly what gets you to Carnegie Hall. So I'm going to pause for a second and say something that you could act on that's based on your value. All right, I hope you came up with something. Now, a few things. I'm going to give you 4 constraints that constraints breed creativity. So these are 4 things that experience has told me helps people. One is you don't have to fix all the world's problems by yourself overnight. It's not how big it is. It's if it matters to you, and if it's not how big it is. Just like scales. Start small, build on that. If you do the little things, the big things become easier. Next is it has to be something physically measurable. I'm a big fan of education. I'm a big fan of awareness, but the environment reacts to our behavior. And we learn from experience, so it has to be your experience. The third thing is you can't be telling someone else what to do. It has to be your experience. I'm not going to stop you from trying to influence your parents, your kids, your Congress member, whatever, but this is for you yourself to learn for you personally. There's enough people telling other people what to do. That gets populace elected all around the world. And the last thing is it has to be physically measurable. So the result is something that, did I say that one already? So physically measurable, it has to be new. So it can't be something that you're already, people, by the way, when I ask them, they start telling me, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. I'm tapped out. I love hearing the stuff that you're already doing. But when you get that this is something to act on your values, you will see that the more new it is, the more you'll want to do it. And this is the first place where people really thank me, is that they say, probably you'll come up with something that you've actually been thinking about for a while. And most people think, I have been meaning to, some people it's using less plastic for a week. Sometimes it's eating less meat. Sometimes it's picking up garbage. Sometimes it's planting a garden. Sometimes it's, it's all sorts of different things, but it has to be something that you're doing. And they thank me because most people have something that they meant to do and they put it off. And this is their chance to do it. And they thank me because they're like, Josh, now I've been meaning to do this. So step one, what does the environment mean to you? Step two, something that you can do to act on that. Now, those are the big ones. Step 3 and 4 are really more management techniques. So step 3 is make it a SMART goal. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. And really, the timing and the specific is what to do here. You don't want it lingering. You don't want it lasting forever. You can. There are people who've, on the podcast, one guy said, I'm going to become vegan right now forever. Okay? Others said, I'm not going to deal with plastic, and that's something really big. That's hard to not interact with plastic. So that one was like a week. And some people it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's a month. But you got to figure out what's right for you, for your task. And step 4 is accountability. So when you listen to the podcast, you'll hear that I say to someone, how long will it take for this to stick, or for you to have something to say? And then let's talk, will you come back a second time? And the second time, they love it. Most common responses when they come back are, that was easy, and I wish I'd done it earlier, or that was hard, and that's the kind of hard stuff that I want. Thank you for getting me to do it. Almost always, it builds community. They share often how, they thought their mom or their kids or their boss was going to be a difficult thing. Actually, what works is to use that person involved in the process, and it creates community and brings people together. And that problem solving is very rewarding. And this changes what we do from extrinsic, telling people what to do, abstract, analytical, to concrete, visceral. What you do, you learn from experience. It's things that you actually do. And that makes people feel like it switches you from, if I act but no one else does and what I do doesn't matter, which if we unpack that, under no circumstances, I suggest, will the phrase, what I do doesn't matter, be a part of, if that's a belief of yours, you probably want to get off of that. Can you imagine saying that to your child? That's okay, what you do doesn't matter. And it gets you from that. And by the way, when I think of what causes global warming, what causes plastic in the ocean, it's not CO2. That's the measurable thing. But CO2 is just molecules. It's bouncing around. They don't have volition. We have volition. And it's our behavior. And this focuses on the behavior. And the behavior comes from these beliefs, and the way to change beliefs is through action. Rarely do beliefs change because of someone telling you a bunch of facts and figures or doom and gloom. This technique gets you to act, and when you apply it to others, you lead people to act. And it moves them from what I do doesn't matter to, I like this. I wish I'd done this earlier. I want to do it more. I want to share this with others, because when I changed my eating habits based on not getting packaged food, the number one feeling that I got was, this is delicious. Yeah, it saved money. Yeah, people came over more. Yeah, I got to go to the farm and I met my farmers community. But first and foremost, what I'm sharing with the world is delicious. That's what it means to you, to me. And what it means to you, it'll come from what you do. And I implore you, I urge you, I'm doing my best to share not what I want you to do or what I think you should do or what other people should do or what's most important. To get to what's most important, you got to do what matters to you most. To find your delicious, to share your delicious with the world, and to evoke others' delicious so that others can share it too. This is the change from coercive management to inspirational leadership. This is your chance to inspire yourself and to inspire all of us. Well, that wasn't bad.
That wasn't bad for a first run through, especially, right?
Yeah, it was like bit to bit to bit.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad we're recording this, because that was good. Like, of course you can spiff that up a little bit, but that was freaking fabulous. And that to me, you can go listen to both of them, but to me, that's the one that's really gonna connect with people and reach in there and touch them. The other one was still, I think, a little bit
impersonal.
Yeah, a little impersonal. I mean, look, it's this, this was an experience I had when I first started doing the Speak Like a Leader boot camp, the early version. I was coaching this woman and I was like, you've got this amazing story. You've got all this, these great things to share, but you're just talking about them. You're not actually sharing them. Yeah. And I went, oh my God, I'm doing that too in this training. I'm telling everybody what to do, but I'm not doing any of it. And I went home that night and I went through the whole Speak Like a Leader boot camp. And every time I said to do something, I went through and made sure I was doing it. And the very next time I delivered the Speak Like a Leader boot camp was the first time I got asked just flat out to come do that for my company, Uh-huh. And so, that esoteric, descriptive, talking about it thing is just not going to land the same way that what you just did will land. Because it was a conversation. You shared it with me. You brought me into it. Like, that's so much more just engaging, right?
Yeah, it's like, I've never boxed, but I think you got to hate the guy. And you can't pull your punches, and you gotta have all the technique.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever let loose like the pitcher, like the boxer.
Yeah.
And that's what I see as that's why I'm increasingly getting to where I gotta just share myself.
Yeah. And listen, you don't have to. But gosh, what's available, Josh? What's available if you do, right?
You mean professionally speaking, what comes, or
everywhere in the whole world, right? I mean, and I'm kind of teasing you a little bit because you said I'm getting to the point where I have to share myself, and you never have to do anything, but you could share yourself. And what would that be like? First of all, what would that just be like for you and the people around you? And then what would be possible out of that, professionally, personally? Like, I think it would take what you're doing to a whole nother level, frankly.
Oh, you mean better sex?
That too. Yeah. You do have to share yourself if you want to have good sex.
There's so many TED Talks that have brewing inside me, so many books.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's when I was in business school, I did the class play, and I was freaked out in third grade. I didn't want to do the class play, and I acted up. I misbehaved, and they were like, as a punishment, you can't do the play. I was like, oh, great.
Perfect.
So double whammy. One, I learned to misbehave because it got me what I wanted.
Yeah.
And two, I didn't go up on stage until I was in my mid-30s in business school. I would do the class play.
Okay.
And it was unquestionably, yeah. I wrote a script. I saw that it's a comedy, sketch comedy, song and dance thing, and it's, you know, there's no standards because half the audience is drunk, and the jokes are all the same jokes about the professors and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's like the financiers versus the consultants, always similar stuff. But everyone's having a great time. And I thought of an idea for a sketch, and so I went to the tryouts the next semester, and I submitted my sketch.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, oh, this is really good. We want to use it. I was like, great, it's yours. And they said, oh, the sketches you have to be in Follies. You got to be in the group. And that means you have to be on stage. You can either play a musical instrument or be on stage. And I was like, here's what I did. I decided I was going to go up until like the last minute, and then what an asshole thing, right? I was going to rehearse, and like the day before leave so that it was too late for me to for them to switch.
Yeah.
And I went enough, and then I got into it, and I liked it, and I decided, all right, I'll give it a shot. And at that time, I thought rehearsal might make it. Were you the one who talked about the valley of the
valley of awkwardness? Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know that there was the other side of the valley, so I was trying not to learn my lines too well in order to stay spontaneous, which is okay, mistake. But I didn't know that yet, so I never got my lines right once in practice. And here's what's great: I was playing a professor in the first sketch that I was on. So I go up on stage, and there's like a name tag of me there. And I actually wrote my lines on the back of the name tag.
That's
before,
funny.
You know, as if the audience isn't going to be like,
Yeah.
not noticing me reading. Yeah. But I gave my lines, and like, it got big laughs. And
yeah, I bet it did. I mean, even doing that's kind of funny, right?
Yeah, retarded and funny. And so I've often said that there was 2 performances with 500 people in the audience each time. And that evening, the hour or 2 after that is possibly the most elated and good I've felt in my entire life. I mean, It was phenomenal.
The adrenaline dump, right? The post.
Way more than that. I mean, endorphins. I mean, I was probably it was probably like fentanyl.
Yeah.
And so now that's all context. So fast forward to the cast party where all the cast goes to, we do karaoke. And although I did do the thing on stage, it was very, whatever freedom you see, whatever lack of freedom you see in me now of inhibition, it's nothing, absolutely nothing compared to before.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm sitting there and kind of having fun. Like I get really drunk and sing, but I'm clearly not getting into it like everybody else is. And this one girl comes over and she's like, let loose. I'm like, I'm trying. And she's like, let loose, just scream. And I'm like, that doesn't, now looking back, I'm like, that doesn't help. Like she thinks like, I don't know, she thinks I'm like a pimple. And if you squeeze me, I'll pop out.
Yeah.
Analogy before, and I think it's disgusting, but whatever.
It works. That works.
But I mean, what I teach is to give people baby steps to get into things.
Yeah.
And you a little, like what causes anxiety is like the big jumps.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of my life has been trying to do what a lot of people learn when they're little kids. And it seems to me that this is available to me, and it's what I really want and crave. And to the extent I've gotten it, it's been very rewarding. And I feel like this is, when I said that this would be the worst one that I do, is that like, this is my entry, this is my first step.
Yeah.
And this TEDx talk will lead to another, and then I'll do the main stage. And by the time I do the main stage, I'll probably be like, when I teach now, I'm not quite yet fully on, but I'm like interact with my students and having a great time. And I want the main stage to be like, you're my people. Like I want to play them like a violin. Yeah. And just be free to be myself.
Let me give you something about that. I did a video about this. It's way buried in my old videos, but there's a thing that I call the rock star principle. And when you are on the stage at this one, you can use this. And here's how it goes. If if I went to U2, let's just, I mean, do you like U2? They're pretty good, right?
Yeah, this is you. It was on the video, but say it again. Yeah, and
okay, all right. Was okay. So maybe it's in the course, but like if Bono came out and he was like shy, like, oh, I'm, you know, like that wouldn't be fun. He's got the stage right now. And when he looks at, when he's like, hello, hello, right? And he looks at me and sings that to me for a second, dude, it totally makes my day. Mm-hmm. And I'm thrilled to give him that power and be in this audience and have him use it, right? And so, you know, they are in your living room. They are your people. For that time you're on stage, man, like you're there for them. They are at your party and you want them to have a good time, right? And you're giving them the best of you and loving them up and putting them at ease. Not a thought about what they're thinking of you. They're in your living room. You got to take care of them, you know?
You know, okay, I'll share with you, something comes to mind is when I get up there, okay, I've been doing stand-up, open mic to like rehearse and practice. And so the first time I got up on stand-up, there's like the lights and all I'm thinking, like, here's what I knew, here's what I knew to prepare. Nail my opening line, because at least that'll get me started.
Yes, that's really good.
And still like noticing like, oh, look, I can see the top of the people's heads back there, but here I can see their faces. And now I can't see anything. And I'm like, well, that's not helping me. Like, that's not what I should be thinking.
No.
And then sometimes like I'll forget something and then it's like, then it like jams up. I'm like, oh, what do I say? What do I say? I'm like, oh, I got to say something. Right. And then the alphabet thing kicks in and I'm like, and so I get nervous about, I mean, rehearsal overcomes that is like the main thing that overcome that as well as experience, but there's no substitute for the first time is the first time.
It is, and good you've done that, right? Now you know what it's like to look out there and see inky blackness. And I think I say this in the course too, but I practice with blank wall, just imagining people.
Oh man, when I did open mic.
Pardon me?
The first time I did open mic, I practiced for probably 10, 15 hours for a 4-minute thing.
Yeah.
I'm just like looking at the side of the room. And actually, open mic is on Saturday. Maybe I can go there after the dress rehearsal and just, it's only 4 minutes, but maybe if I said, look, I got a TEDx talk.
Yeah.
Will you give me 15 minutes?
Yeah, you could try. Yeah, no, I mean, it's good to deliver it for groups if you can. And it's also good to say thank you for all their feedback and know what to listen to and what not to, if you're going to do any of that stuff. Yeah.
And so I think it's just go up and like, all right, I'll make mistakes. I mean, mistakes may happen. If they don't happen this time, it'll happen sometime.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, you know, because of mirror neurons, how you respond to the mistake is how they're going to respond to it. If you get upset, they'll be upset. If it's no big deal to you, it's no big deal to them. And here's another thing, by the way, I'm going to say this, but then I forgot. Backing up for a second, that forgetting your lines and like going, here's some great coaching I was given. The answer is never in here. The answer is always over there. So when I mess up or I get lost or I forget what I'm saying, I've trained myself now to like, I want to go, but what I do now is I go and I look out at the audience and the answer's out there. And I just try and look deep for a minute and then it comes to me and everybody thinks, oh, wow, he's deep, you know? But the answer's always over there.
And that's a body language, that's a physical way to get out of the hole.
It like what it's doing for me is it's so first of all, it's not letting me go in my head because it's dangerous in there. Don't go in alone anyway. And it's keeping my eyes from rolling back like this and me disconnecting with the audience. I've trained myself physically to look at the audience and even lean in a little bit because that's who I'm there for. So whatever it is that I'm missing right now or forgetting or whatever it is I'm going to say or should say, it's over there because I'm with them. I'm not going to separate from them to go find what it was I was going to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, although it makes me, I fear making eye contact with someone and having them feel like they know, oh, he forgot his line.
Yeah. Well, like yeah, I mean, I'm just always making eye contact with people, you know, the whole time. Like I'm always talking to a person, except for the few seconds it takes me to scan from this face to that face. And now I'm talking to that person. And if I forget my line, I'll just look at them for a second. And if I'm still forgetting it, I might look at them for a second and it'll come, you know?
So I guess I'll start having to develop that practice.
I mean, it's worked for me, and it was something that was taught to me. And I think that really what's super good about it is it's keeping me connected with what I'm there for versus this disconnection that happens when I go in my head looking for what I thought I was going to say, you know?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. This is about helping them.
It's all about, yes. Yeah. That is so freeing. So Josh, my wife just came home and I gotta go pretty soon.
Uh-huh.
So how about I send you my notes for what they're worth? I don't think there's much in my notes, but what I will also send you in probably like, I don't know, in a little while, because it takes a minute to process in the cloud, is the recording of this. And then you can listen to as much or as little of that as you want to, but it might be useful for you to go back and listen to yourself do that what you just did, because it was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, thank you. And also, this is your business. I feel like we talked about how we'd worked together before, and I feel like I love free advice.
Sure.
But also, and I'd also love to interact with you next week if we can.
I'd love to. I mean, and you know, I forget what we talked about, but I think it was just my super TEDx thing. Did I send you a proposal or something?
That's a good question. I didn't even look it up.
Because I'm happy with whatever, and because it's for an actual TEDx event, you know, when I work with corporate guys, I charge them $15K for 12 sessions, and that's the minimum that I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. But that's only because that's the only way I can get them to show up and pay attention. So for TEDx events, what I've been doing, and I'm super happy to do it for you if it works, and if not, let's keep talking, is the course in 4 sessions for $500. And if we don't get it done in 4 sessions, if that's not enough, then it's not like I'm a nitpicker. And I would really like to make sure, even if we go through those sessions, that we debrief the talk once you've done it and we can both watch it, because there'll be that's another huge leap, because that's just really powerful to debrief that and complete the cycle.
Yeah. That sounds great. I mean, that does seem like what you said before.
Pretty sure yeah.
So that sounds good to me. And then I can't help but also think, assuming this goes well, which it will, I'd love to do more TEDx talks. Yeah. And I don't know if you're connected with like other places and things like that, but
I mean, you know, I don't work for TED. I have been the speaker coach for about 35 plus TEDx events. Mm-hmm. All, you know, but I don't officially work for TED, and I'm not on any committees. So I can introduce you. I certainly can't promise anything because I don't have any sway. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty tied into that community, and I'm certainly happy to you know, let people know that you're interested and talk to you about where other good places might be to go look at. And you know, sometimes people get asked to reprise their TED Talk. Like I've been asked to do the same one twice. Uh-huh. Other times they want to hear from you, but they want something different. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, I think knocking this one out of the ballpark is the best way into that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I hadn't really thought about this, but I feel like there must be like a fraternity of like when everyone kept telling me when you publish your first book, now you're an author, and we talk to other people who have written a book, then you also have written a book. And
yeah.
And so TEDx is like, even, I guess it's like a more refined, a more
Well, it's not, and here's the big thing, Josh, and this is really important in the TED and TEDx community. There is a distinction, but there is purposefully not a distinction between attendees and speakers. It is a community. And if you speak at TED, unless you're somebody super duper extra special, they don't have you speak unless you can come attend for the whole week. And if they like what you're doing, but they're not sure, they'll invite you to come to TED and meet people and be part of the community. And if you do that and it goes well, then probably the next year you might get asked to speak. But I've had people apply to things like TED Med and get invited, say, look, we don't have any more room, which is true because they applied less than a year before, and say, we don't have any more room. We'd love to have you join us. Here's an invitation, and come join us and let's get to know each other. And sometimes people are like, are they just scamming me for my money? And it's like, no, actually they're not. Like, it's really truly a very close-knit, meaningful, ongoing community. And that's where, that part is important. So not a distinction between speakers and attendees. It's all the community, and the community really does actually matter.
Okay. Do you know about the summit series?
Yeah. That's happening, I think, in July. I think I'm going to be in Amsterdam or something, which is...
So it's in November in LA, but there's one in May in Tulum, Mexico.
Oh, different thing. Summit.
So Summit is, it's like a mix of TED and Burning Man, I guess, kind of.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. Boy, I would love to go speak at that myself. Sounds like
so I went. So about a year ago, I held an event for my podcast, which was my first panel. So I'd and after that event, this woman came up to me and said, you would really like Summit. And so she invited me to Summit. So I went to LA and I took the train because I'm not flying.
Yeah.
And they're all like, we're really green and sustainable. And they're not really, they are compared to the average American, which is like, I've also murdered fewer people than Charles Manson. It's not a very meaningful comparison. And so I met the people. And so they invited, so I had a guy over here to have my famous no packaging vegetable stew. And he was like, long story short, he's like, you're going to be doing a thing at this November 2019 in downtown LA, and it's going to be on sustainability, and we might even get you multiple things. So I'm slated to give a talk there. And he said, too bad you can't go to our one in Mexico in May because you can't fly.
Yeah.
Or you don't fly. And I was like, yeah, I don't fly. Not that I can't.
Yeah.
And I said, that's a boat ride. And it almost came together to get a boat from Florida to Tulum, Mexico, where I would have gotten to speak. And it was actually just yesterday that we were like, not enough time to make this work.
Yeah.
I turned down speaking at Summit Tulum, where they would have flown me there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of looked at it like a few years ago, there was a late frost and all the pit fruits withered, like the fruits and the plum, the peaches and the plums and stuff.
Yeah.
And my sister pointed out the next year, okay, the fruit didn't form, but the sugar was still in the tree.
Oh yeah. So the
next year, it was like incredibly sweet, delicious fruit, like you've never tasted.
That's really great. That's cool. That's good.
And so I looked at all the work that I put into trying to get to Tulum.
Yeah.
None of it was going to be wasted because it was all going to make November in LA work.
Yeah.
So I might be doing a series of things at the Summit LA there.
Well, that's cool.
And the way you talked about the community is also like how the Summit is like a community. There's a lot of first timers every year.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, that's really cool. It's in November, huh?
Yeah, and that one is going to be, it could be a workshop, but I think there's also a talk. I mentioned that I was working on a TED Talk before, and there's a much more like a 45-minute one, so that would not be a TED Talk, but like a longer one that is like talking about what everyone can do, not just this process. Maybe we should leave this for later because I don't want to get between you and your wife. I apologize about that.
Yeah, sorry. She just texted me. Just give me a sec to respond here. Okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah. So I did zone there at the very last part, but I mean, that's super cool. So I see it right here. Summit LA 19, November 8th through 11th.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And if you look at the 2018, you can see you can see the lineup, which was like Al Gore and Howard Schultz and Esther Perel. And
it looks amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you want to go? I mean, I can't invite, but I can. Now I'm working with these people who invite.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Do you know how much it is? I mean,
it wasn't cheap. It was like $3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah, because I just
hotel and food.
Yeah, look, I would love to go, and I got to close some big freaking major corporate deals because I just dropped 45 grand, actually close to 50 grand, to go to Necker Island for a week.
Oh man, yeah.
Courageous Conversations, which was mind blowing. Great thing to do, but a little out of my league. I was a featherweight in the heavyweight ring, and I got a few bruises here that I need to heal financially. But I mean, if I would love to stay in touch with you about that, because I intend to get all this handled and more. Like this very minute, dude, I can barely go by,
I'm about to publish my book, and I decided to go not self-publishing, but like I'm paying for the editing and all the stuff. And it's I think I'm in for, I think it's gonna be $25,000.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And with all the work on the book and developing the podcast, I haven't been hitting the bushes to like bring in the coaching and the speaking fees.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yet again, coasting into the gas station, empty, but just making it. I think it'll work out. And then the TED Talk, like in the middle of it, is like, fuck, like, but I think the TED Talk I don't have a sizzle reel. So I think this will help with the speaking.
I think that's true. And